welcome everyone. We are live today with one of our good friends, Mark Kenny, and thrilled to have him on with us. And welcome today as I'm Doug Kothe with People Smart Group, LLC, and consulting. And I'm also the founder of the Organizational Health Collective, of which Terry here and Mark are both a big part of. And so I'm going to hand it off to you, Terry, to introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll introduce Mark for us, if that's good.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm Dr. Terry Wager, Generator Consulting, and I have my partner, Christine, who is my partner in my life and in my business. And I am an organizational psychologist that really focuses on organizational health.
And Christine is definitely the better half, right?
I wouldn't disagree.
And we've got Mark with us today. Mark is in Nashville, Tennessee, and is doing organizational health consulting, speaking, and coaching of leaders down there, teams, and a lot of work with teams. And so we are thrilled to have him on today so we can jump in and talk about so much of that. He's got some really special stuff where he works with, as he says it, eliminating territorial thinking. And so today we're going to dive in a little bit with him on that. He's got a special model for that. And but Mark, first, if you want to introduce yourself any more than I just said, feel free to jump in and go for it.
Thanks, Doug. And Terry, it's great to be on here. And you did a great job there, Doug. Yeah, I love working with teams. I always love teams ever since I was a little kid and a Green Bay Packers fan. And I coach high school girls basketball on the side in the winter. And so anything about teams, I love it.
Fantastic. Awesome. Great stuff. Well, let's dive right in then. I love that you have this model that you just were sharing a little bit with me about beforehand, the eliminating territorial thinking. Tell us a little bit about it, and then let's dive in and chat about how that works. What do you how does that help organizations?
Sure. And I created this model previously, and I'm actually refreshing and simplifying the model. And so you guys can help me with that today and see what you think.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I thought that'd be fun. So before there were 5 variables to this model. One was that we need to have a destination that we're pursuing together. And if I back up a little bit, the context is, there's an organization, a government agency, or a company that maybe has different divisions or departments, but they're all kind of heading in the different directions. So government, or I for some reason I've done a lot of work with government. It just kind of happened that way. So you see a lot of that there, but also in healthcare and other industries where we're just not talking to each other, or in silos, don't have that communication. It doesn't feel like we're on one team. So part of that is having a destination that we're pursuing together. Like if I could use a basketball example, it's like we're trying to win the championship. What's the championship that we're trying
Absolutely.
to
win? Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And then there were some other variables in that original model. One was around restoring individuals. That was back at the time. Well, people are still so overwhelmed and feeling disconnected or isolated. Like, how do we restore that so people feel cared for and heard and appreciated, and like individuals are healthy? Because if individuals aren't healthy, how can teams be healthy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the third part of that model was teams, like having strong teams. And that gets into a lot of the stuff that I know you all work on as well, which is like, how are we showing up as a team player? How are we behaving as a team? What are the behaviors? What are some of our processes? Like, how do we run meetings so that the individual team units are functional and healthy?
Yeah.
Both functional teams, but also, my past life was in project management and operations. So even like cross-functional teams, like how do we create the culture so we have a team culture, so we're operating as a team, so we have strong individual team units.
Yep.
And then it's about eliminating gaps between teams, so we're kind of creating a team of teams. So what are the rhythms and relationships we can create so different teams, different departments, different groups are actually talking together and working with each other?
Yep.
And then the last part of it I call constraints, which is what if we do all those 4 things well, what holds us back? And so that's things like maybe having a performance or reward system that doesn't actually reward working together, or we say we want people to work together, but that's not really something that's rewarded. Something
I like that.
You just went on mute on us there, Mark. Hold on.
Is that what happened?
Yep.
You know what's
Sorry about
funny?
that. You went mute on us.
Yep, I bumped my microphone and it muted me. So
Those
things
things
that
are
are
not
that
expecting live.
Yeah. Give us that last bit again, Mark.
yeah, so the last variable was constraints. Like what constraints hold us back from working together, kind of being unified, if you will. So it's allowing things like allowing behaviors that are destructive, or like not really holding people accountable to the right behaviors, not having a reward system that rewards people for working together, or it's not congruent. Like we say we want everyone to work together, but we're actually rewarded for something different. So it's those kinds of things. Performance systems. What are the systems we have in place that are, hiring leaders or hiring the wrong people as leaders, not really developing them, so we don't have good leaders in the organization. So it's those types of things that are constraints holding us back from actually working together. So that was kind of the original model that I put together.
Yeah. Sounds great. How are you re-envisioning that now?
I was going to say,
sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, no. How are you seeing a shift in that model, and what is the new orientation of it or iteration of it?
I am trying to, number one, I'm working on simplifying it, like making it really simple, easier to understand, and just bringing it a few years forward. For example, when that model came out, it was during COVID, and there's just a lot of things going on there. So what's going on now? And I've had some experiences since then. Like, I mentioned coaching high school girls basketball. That's like, I've learned so much from that, and vice versa, and from other experiences. Like, how do we really unify or strategically unify, where it's a choice that we're looking to get everyone actually working as one organizational team or one departmental team, in addition to the individual teams. So just kind of trying to refresh it and simplify it. So you guys want to?
That makes sense.
I got to say that working with teenage girls, I was a clinical psychologist before, and one of the groups that was the most difficult to work with is the teenage girls. And I'm not sure if it's hormones or just the cattiness, but I mean, I even had a training called frenemies, and it's like friend enemy again. It's I tell you what, if you can get those ladies working together, working with any other group has got to be pretty easy.
Yeah, I have learned so much from that, Terry, because it's such a stage in life. Like, I love them to death. It's such a stage in life where just all sorts of things are happening and they're growing, and even like some are seniors and some are freshmen. Like, those are two very different stages. And how do we all? So it's a wonderful challenge.
I thought you were going to go, how do we all just get along?
But like, it's so easy to, this is, I don't want to make this whole thing about basketball, but I just kind of love it, right? I just love any sort of team thing. But there's some correlations between the work that we all do.
Absolutely.
Like, it's so easy to get focused on like the X's and O's, and like the plays we're going to run and the skills, and those are all important. But pretty high level coach encouraged me, and he was like, yeah, those are important, but what's really going to make the difference are the intangibles, like the culture we're building. And it's like,
say more about that, because I think that's really important. And I know that all kinds of people talk about that, and all kinds of people are able to point to that, but then in the actual production of it, it doesn't really happen all the time. So say more about what you're talking about.
Well, what came out of that was creating a set of values that I wanted to instill, that we wanted to instill in our players. And it's so funny. Doug and I were talking a little bit before you got on, Terry, about how like I encourage leaders to do this. And I've had it like some of these, like I know we've all had this, but like actually doing it yourself is like, oh wow, this is like it really takes some work. but it's so rewarding when you go through the work of doing that. So it was creating a set of values. Like in this case, it was gratitude, like really wanting to have a culture of gratitude, and kind of a mental toughness where we're not getting all frustrated based on getting a bad call from the referees or what we interpret as a bad call or missing a shot, like be able to drop that and keep on going. Competitive greatness, like really competing out there with an intensity. So those are some examples, but to get to the point of what you're getting at, Terry, it really was putting those on paper, literally having everyone sign off that we're bought into it, and then like talking about them every single day. And then going a few days and forgetting to talk about them and like, okay, we're seeing, and then like, oh shoot, I haven't, because I get back to the X's and O's again. And so just talking about them all the time and like, these are important and this is what it looks like. And
something you just said really, I really liked what you just said, and it was subtle, and I don't know if everybody heard it, but you said, I forget and I go back to the X's and O's. And then what happens to the kids? What happens to the team? And so I think that was really good as the coach, that I got to remember these values that we're focusing on. And if I'm the person in the business that's running the business, I got to be aware of these and be the reminder. And so I don't know if everybody caught that, but that was really a gem there.
100%, Terry. Thank you for that, because it is so easy to get wrapped up in the tasks and the work that we have to do. So easy.
Let me ask, I'm curious, Mark, you talked about coming up with these values. How did you come up with the values? Were the girls involved in that? Did they help contribute? Or was that more, hey, this is who we're going to be? How'd you go about that?
I created them. I got a number of ideas for them from other coaches that have really worked for their programs. And I love the idea of co-creating, like with players. I didn't do that this time.
Okay.
I love that. I did bring it to who are going to be our captains, kind of get some buy-in to that. But I put them down on paper, got feedback on it, but it was mostly me creating it this time.
I actually like that, Doug, you asked that, and Mark, you're saying that you did that, because a lot of times, especially in organizational health, they tend to say that everybody has to do it for buy-in. But what you're basically saying, at least I'm hearing, maybe I'm making it up in my head probably, but you're saying that we can actually get buy-in if we make it and then sell it to them in some way. And so say more about that.
Yeah, I think so. And part of that honestly may have just been like, this is what I wanted. This is what I think we need. But I think what might work best there, Terry, you got me thinking, is that like creating them and then getting feedback on them. So people have, because sometimes I think it's hard for people, especially in that context, players, like just to have a blank piece of paper and try and come up with them. But
and
having
girls,
something
right?
for them to relax to. Yeah. But even like a team, a business team or whatever, like it's hard to come up with things. It's hard to have a blank white paper or a blank whiteboard and just come up with something, but having something to react to and get some feedback on, I do think that's important.
Absolutely.
But I think it's good. I think it's helpful to have something to react to in the beginning. And in this case, it was a little more of, for better or worse, like this is what I really felt we needed. So there wasn't a lot of discussion or input into it, but I did want to get buy into it. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think I'm pointing out that there's more than one way to come to the values for an establishment, and I've wrestled with the idea of the leader, especially in like smaller businesses where it's their money on the line, it's their vision on the line, it's them versus 2 or 3 people or maybe 10 people working for them that don't really have the same level of commitment to the money and the situation. And then you get everybody to try to buy into the same values, and that's great. And I think it should happen. You got to have the buy-in. But if they're all making the values, these people are making values out of something that isn't as detrimental to them as it is to this one person. And so for me in that situation, I would much rather, and I have much rather, come up with, okay, what are your values that you want your people who are working for you to buy into? And now let's have that discussion. And I actually did it, something what you're talking about with the idea of, okay, these are the values we're looking at. What's your input on it? And then have a little input conversation. And can you see how those play into these, and are they in alignment, and really having that alignment conversation. I do think that when you get to, the point that you're talking about with a basketball team or something like that, you can be a little bit more free floating with how much buy-in you need, because you get to tell them if they're going to sit on the bench or not. So that there might be a little autocraticness, but I really like that idea.
Yeah, that's interesting, Terry. I really like what you're saying there, because I think also it's like, what is it that you want to create as the owner? Because you don't want to have something a year down the road that's like, well, that's not really my values,
Right.
that I want. This is not really the company I want to create. So really creating that clarity in what you want to create in that context, I could see is important. And then you're attracting people that have similar values and want to join that.
But I think both of you brought up a point that as the leader, they have to be my values, right? They have to be who I am and how I live. And so to a degree, as a leader, if you're going to be the one who determines, hey, these are the values, they better reflect you. And you better be able to live them before your team in order for them to be able to take them on.
Yes. Yeah, because otherwise that's not going to work too well. That's a great point, Doug.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the other thing it makes me think, just the other side of it is, like, sometimes there's organizations that have been around for a while or larger, and you don't want to be switching values for every leader, so that there needs to be some sort of foundation there, and then attracting leaders that are going to uphold those. So I think what we're saying is, which is really intriguing, is it depends a little bit on the context as to how we create and maintain those values.
I would definitely agree with that. So tell me how you use this model when you're going and starting the conversation with a business.
Well, we haven't gotten to the new model yet. You kind of want me to share that real quick?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I do.
Good redirect, Mark.
So hey, you guys can give me some feedback on this, right? This is kind of a little bit of the reveal. There's really just four parts to it, and there are more verbs. And so I'm looking to finish this up this month, actually. So you guys give your audience a little sneak peek.
I'll reflect back to you, Mark. When I first heard you lay out the 5-part model that you were using, it felt like I was trying to eat an elephant. It felt like there was a lot there, and it was like, okay, well, where do you start and how do you do that? And like when I heard it all laid out, it felt like this huge project that as one who you might be presenting it to might go, how are we going to do all of that? That seems like that's going to take years.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was what I felt a little bit. Thanks, Doug, for giving that feedback. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great to hear, because I really tried to simplify it, because it does seem like a lot. And I think that's a challenge, getting back to your question from a minute ago, Terry, is it can seem like a lot of work getting an organization healthy. And so like, what is that really all about, and where do we start
I had a little call with somebody this morning, and they're like, well, HR does the DEI stuff, and I think the HR does some of the leadership development, but then there's a training department that does this and this, and they're like, I don't know where you'd fit. It's like, put me in touch with the CEO. Let's talk.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes me think of, I've had a few conversations with people at the mid-level. They're like, I don't even know what other divisions are doing. Like, I just have no idea. We're just
Right.
doing our job.
And it's interesting how this is a thought that I had while I was talking. This guy, beautiful guy, wonderful interaction. And I'll be talking to him more for sure. But it's like a testament to how you can have one part of the company working really well and it really be siloed, and the other parts may be working well too. But
Mhm.
there's something missing because they don't have the answers. And so there is a communication gap there, but it's almost intangible in itself is what the problem is or what the gap is or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's sometimes, I don't know if you guys go through this, but when I'm talking to companies, sometimes I get confused about what they really think they need because they're talking to me, but they have that everything's going really good in my department, but I'm not sure about that department. I'm not sure. And then, well, things aren't going so good in some places, but I don't know how to really address it. And then it turns into the confusion that I just said. And it's like, okay, so where do we go from here?
Yes. Yeah, that's really good.
I'm confused. How's this working for your organization? You're all
Yeah.
confused too.
And I think sometimes it manifests itself in the sense that there's more and more initiatives and projects that require this cross organizational collaboration. It's like, how do I get what I need from division X or department Y? And
Well, and then the interesting thing that happens is, well, we're working really good. I wish we could talk to our supervisors or our C-suite or whatever level management above them the way that we're talking to you or the way that we can talk to our own people.
Mhm.
And then they feel as powerless as maybe their employees feel. And it's funny because I was working with this electrical company a couple of probably last year that said the very same thing. It's like, I wish we could have this kind of conversation with our higher ups. And my question to them was, I wonder how many of the people that are working under you that you're supervising have that same statement, but they're not voicing it to you.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not something you would say probably out
no.
loud. So,
Not if
Yeah.
you're frightened and then everything's good.
yeah.
And then everything's good.
Good.
Well, are we producing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're producing. Are you producing at the level you could?
Mhm.
Well, let's not talk about that. We're producing. We're hitting our numbers.
Yeah.
We're hitting our
And-
numbers.
Yeah.
We're on trajectory. Are you on the best trajectory? I don't know.
Yeah. And are we having fun doing it? Are we enjoying the
Well, it's work. Why would we
Are
do
we all miserable?
or are we all miserable?
So-
Yes.
Absolutely.
So circling back with you,
So-
Mark, on your model, the first thing I heard for you was getting them all on the same page about big picture objectives, big picture goals, what we might, or Jim Collins might call your purpose. I just blanked on the word, but anyway, your why, your big purpose, your
bag.
Big, hairy idea.
Audacious goal. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So
so-
there's really 4 things, Doug. That's coming back
Yeah.
to that. Thanks for
Let's
chasing
hear
me
it.
back to that.
Reveal it.
One is to chase a big goal. To getting back to what you were just saying. Like, I think sometimes that's what we're missing is it's like there's not a central goal that we're all chasing together.
Right.
There's a team I was working with, I think it was last year, and one of the people on the team was like, it was around the time of the Super Bowl. Like, he's like, what's our Super Bowl? I don't know what our Super Bowl is. We're just doing work. It's like, what are we trying to accomplish that requires all of us to actually work together? All the divisions or departments or teams or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first, is like chasing a big goal.
Well, and by big, you would probably say, so like you just said, it's got to be a bigger goal than just us. It's got to be transcendent to who we are.
Yes.
It's got to be big enough that it takes all of us to accomplish it. Is that?
That's exactly right. big enough that we all need to that takes all of us. We can't, no one of us can do it on our own. It's simple enough that we can all understand it. And I heard Randy Boyd, he's the president of the University of Tennessee recently. And he was talking about setting a goal that's between probable and impossible.
Yeah.
And I just love that. Like something that is probably not going to happen, but we can pursue it, because if we really pursue it, it can happen. Yeah. It's big, but it's also not impossible. So I really like that. Something that we're really trying to pursue. And then I think there's a couple layers to that, is kind of the long-term goal that we're really trying to pursue. Like, we're really trying to make a difference in the world. And then like the short-term goal that we all know is a rallying cry, or a thematic goal that we're all trying to pursue in the next few months, or whatever that time frame is.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
absolutely.
Why would we work together otherwise? Like, why?
Right.
There's no reason to, if we're not trying to pursue something together.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so chase a big goal. What's 2?
2 is to cultivate teamwork. And by the way, this isn't final. So in fact, this latest iteration is literally from just this weekend. So this is great timing. So it's like, how do we build the culture of teamwork, the values, the behaviors, like, what does teamwork look like here, so that everybody knows what it is? We're actively cultivating it. Like, we're actually building teams and teamwork and the behaviors. We're building trust. We're having the debate we need to, or accountability, all those types of things, like build the values, holding those values up. Like, we're cultivating the teamwork. So that would be the second piece there.
Yeah. And knowing who you are and who we are, I know where you're going to start with that, but not necessarily everyone watching necessarily would. So where do you start?
There's a few layers to that, but there's a few ways to answer that. One would be, really think you start with the leadership team. Like, the leadership team buys into what teams look like, what the values are, how we behave. And then within a team, it's like, how am I showing up? Am I a team player? What are my preferences? What brings me joy? What drains me? And how about you as my team member? How are we each behaving? How are we behaving in meetings? So really being able to do some work and have a bigger understanding of myself and others, and and sometimes it's just having a conversation about the conversation that we never have around what's actually happening on the team and what kind of a team we want this to be. Like, we're doing the work, but we just don't talk about it. So it's just sometimes just having those conversations and coming out with a playbook for what teamwork actually looks like.
I like that. One of the things that I talk a lot about when I'm working with my people is, even if you're a solopreneur, you have a team, because you're either working against yourself or with yourself. And so you're your first teammate. And so I like this idea of going from goal to cultivate teamwork. It's because you still have that restoration of people in there, but it's more of how we're going to make the team work together, is restoring the people and getting the communication working the way it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear in you, Mark, that sense of it's contextualized too. Like, my starting point depends on where you're at as a team already. And obviously I need to start with leaders and make sure leaders are all there. But then also, what are the dynamics? What's going on here? Do I need to work on some of how we show up at meetings, or where we're at in terms of understanding ourselves, even to be able to show up with others? All of that plays into on where's the team. So it begs to that question of the contextualization of our work, right? That we're so contextualized because we really want to show up and say, what do you need? Not, hey, here's my system.
Yes, that's right. And I think that gets back to what, Terry, you had asked earlier, like as we're talking to organizations, or if you're within an organization, it's like doing some analysis, like what's really like this, what's going on? Like what are the frustrations? What's working well? What's not? What do we want the future to look like? And So
Absolutely.
I think it's like some of that is important to your point, Doug, because every story, every context is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yep. So just
Okay,
your showing
dying
up
here.
can help the leader.
Dying
You're
here,
showing
what's
up as an
three?
outside viewpoint, right?
So-
Yes.
But
All right, Terry.
We're stepping on each other.
Yep.
Yeah. So showing up as an outside person in the organization is what Doug was saying, and so we have that outside point of view, and we need to kind of get some information from them, and that makes sense. So I'm gonna switch back to your model. What is number 3? I can't wait.
I don't know why, but the evil part of me wants to like just hold that in suspense and not.
I would just hold it. Just
tell you
hold it
for a
and,
couple
and
minutes.
make me suffer. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Do it.
It is. It is to. So if we think of, it's to connect together. To connect. So think
Okay.
about it within a team, but also really, I'm thinking in the context at an organizational level, like just being able to connect across teams, across departments, and build relationships across departments. And there's a number of ways to do that, number of rhythms to do that, where you're getting people together to share information, getting people together to solve problems, using every opportunity so people get to know each other across departments and divisions. So it's really getting people to connect, because I think if we have relationships, the more relationships we have, the easier it is to actually work together and to get rid of these us versus them mentalities and silo mentalities that we have, because it's like me in the office here making perceptions about people in the central office, for example. It's natural to do that. And so we create these artificial silos, if you will, like silos in our minds that aren't really true. We've just made them up because we don't have the relationship, we don't have the connection with them. So it's being really intentional, putting rhythms in place to connect with each other, to build those relationships.
One of the funny things, I used to, when I was a therapist, a lot of my counseling was doing little bits, like little humoristic kind of jokes. And one of them, you're pointing towards one of them, which is in the absence of connection, my ego will play the role of the other person. And my ego is always going to be mitigating damage that could happen. And so he plays the evil show up of whoever it is, or the evil presentation of whoever I might be talking to. And so I'm always battling with my ego if I'm not talking to them.
That is really interesting. I like that a lot, Terry.
And then as a result, I always get rejected. And so where you're saying build connection, if I'm not actually talking to the people, but I'm trying to actually game plan how I'm going to talk to them, the game plan gets worse and worse and scarier because my ego is rejecting me constantly in their voice, in their mannerisms, and it's all in my head.
It's
and we
all
didn't even
in
know
my
it
head.
happened. But that's one of the things that I used to really help people understand. This is where most of our anxiety comes from, is the continuous rehearsal with our own ego.
Yeah.
And so we need to get rid of the ego for a minute. I mean, we're never going to get rid of the ego, actually, but put the ego aside and put the fear of what the ego has told you aside and give the person a real chance.
That's good. That's really good, Terry. I like that. And, sometimes it's like, especially like we're so dispersed, we're in different areas, different offices, we're remote. Sometimes it's just like getting in the room together in a retreat or something, and like having interaction, being like, hey, this is actually a person, and all those stories I'm telling about myself from the ego aren't really true. And
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Well, it seems like the bar has gotten higher because of that remote, hybrid, all of those things that separate us. There's more layers of separation between us. It's not just, hey, we're in this office, you're in that office. Now it's, hey, even though we're all in the same office, we don't even come together. We're in our own offices out, and we're connecting by Zoom when we need to, not other times. And so we don't even have the water cooler moments anymore. We don't have the, hey, I ran into you at the copier moment. And so it seems even all the more necessary to figure out, how do I build those connections? How do I humanize the other people around me?
Yes. This has to be really intentional. And it's really hard if we're going years without ever coming together and having any like real relationships and connection. That's hard.
Absolutely.
I remember coming out of COVID.
Go ahead.
I remember coming out of COVID and how many people would say, "Hey, I have team members I've never met in person," and then all of a sudden they meet them and they're like, "Oh, you're taller than I thought, or shorter than I thought, or you're this that you're so different than I really thought from Zoom." And it's just amazing how little we understood and knew each other because all we had.
Yes. Yeah. A few weeks ago, I was speaking at a retreat, like a division-wide retreat, and it's just, we don't usually work together. Like, it's just getting everybody in the room and actually talking and conversing and being a little vulnerable. It just it doesn't take a whole lot. We just got to be intentional about it.
Yeah. And a couple of years back, I was in a coaching program for entrepreneurs, and one of the things that my coach was saying was, wonderful lady. She really focused on making sure that although it was a year program and most of it was online and that type of thing, we want to have at least 1 or 2 retreats to create that connection, to galvanize people together. And so I think that's missing in the remote work, especially with companies that have people in India or virtual team kind of work. There is something to just being able to be in the presence of the other people you're working with.
Yes.
However, it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is impossible. Sometimes the business is too small to actually be able to get people from India or whatever. Or even, Doug lives in Houston. I live in Portland. You live in Tennessee, right? Tennessee.
Yep. That's right. Nashville.
And so, Nashville. And so just the idea of us getting together for organizational collective type of thing, we talked about it a few times about 6 months ago, but it's like, okay, how do we actually make something like that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into a logistical, real, I wouldn't say problem, but it becomes much more of a logistical question that then it takes away from whatever the job really is. And so I think that's one of the reasons that people don't do it nowadays is like, okay, we're really trying to build our business. We're really trying to do this. We're really trying to do that. The travel doesn't make sense. So then we got to actually really be focused on, okay, if travel's not going to make sense, if we're not going to get connected that way in person, what are we going to do to create the connection over Zoom or phone or something like that that really works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that, Doug. I mean, Terry, I just got you guys mixed up. That happens all the time.
I stole Doug's idea. He just he didn't know it.
Yeah. I like the word you said there, Terry, about intentional. Like really, like how are we, like not ignoring it, but like how, this is the context, getting back to what you said earlier, like what are we going to do? Because that's really my job as a leader, is it not? To build those connections and build that culture.
Absolutely. We actually, in one of my groups that I'm working with, I'm on the board of a skateboarding community that is recovery and skateboarding. I was talking about it a little bit earlier. But they were having a problem of feeling really disconnected, and they don't have a central place for connection and community and even the board talking to each other, knowing what's going on. And so we actually came up with, because we're not going to be able to get together as much as we want. There's California here, a lot of people in my area, but just the timing is difficult too. And so we came up with something like Doug came up with the organizational collective. This is a place where we can actually share information and that type of thing. And it's not the same thing as being in person, but it is a rendition of it intentionally to make sure that everybody has a place where they can communicate, where they can connect, where they can see what's going on in the group, rather than just feeling like a silo waiting to hear from somebody that may or may not remember to call. And so that's connection is super important.
Yeah.
What is your fourth?
Yeah.
The fourth is, it is so simple. It's to talk. It's just like talking with each other, even division to division, department to department. Because we just don't talk and share information. And I mean, like, deliberately putting in rhythms to share information. So I know you guys are both familiar with Alan Mullally, like the business process reviews he put together where they share information, or like Jack Welch used to do these workouts back in the day, call them workouts to get people in the same room solving a problem. Or like, what are the rhythms so that maybe I don't need to know all the details of what's going on in Doug's division, but at least have a high level idea of what's going on and how he's fitting into the big picture. So like, what are the rhythms, intentional rhythms for us to, as an organization, to share information and just communicate? I thought of the word communicate there because it's another C, because then it'd be 4 C's, but everyone talks about communication. So it's like, we just need to talk, like just talk to each other, just share information. And, how do we do that so that information is flowing? That's the fourth one.
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
I like it.
What's missing, guys? What do you think? What would you add to this? What would you change?
I probably would change the talk to communicate, so it's 4 C's, but you already came up with that. So no, I'm just kidding. I would change all of the first 3 to T's. That way it would be 4 T's. I just don't know what they would. Yes. I'm teasing.
And name it after Terry, so we have a T, with it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. No, I like the piece in your first model that talks about the rhythms and eliminating gaps. I also like the constraints and what's holding us back, and I can see how they'd be captured in there, but I don't know. I'll leave it at that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think if you look at this visually, in the middle, there are some of those things, like some of the things holding us back. Even like, I think, beliefs we have as leaders, because some of the things I've been thinking of is like a lot of times we know we're supposed to do these things, but we don't. I know in my own experience, sometimes it's like hiding behind the work or hiding because I don't want to be exposed or embarrassed or something. So I think some of that plays into it. Like I think there's another layer to this, maybe in the middle, that's like, what are those things that hold us back as a leader or an organization that's going to keep these things from happening if we don't address them?
So what's also kind of hit me as I look at it is number 4, talk, is really be more vulnerable.
Yeah, that's right.
Become more vulnerable, right? Or trust. And then 3 is kind of the idea of entering a conflict. Connect with each other, talk, connect.
Yep.
And then 2 is the idea of committing and accountability. And then 4 is actually attention to the goal. So I think it fits right in with maybe how healthy people are moving towards team function rather than the dysfunction that we see in 5 dysfunctions.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the model's a little geared towards a little more organizational level. Like, how do we get rid of the silo mentalities and territorial thinking? But yeah, I love what you're saying, Terry. There's so many correlations there. 100%.
Yeah. You're onto something. I want to see where it goes. That's for sure.
Yeah. I like, so I was thinking of, because I'm an ID, so I'm going to come up with, ideas. But I mean, your last one, Terry, you're talking about having some vulnerability in that communication and making sure we're connecting in those ways along with the talk, right? And I was thinking of the word candor, building candidness, building candid conversations across the way there, where everyone is just being real, being honest about, hey, where are we at, what's going on? Because I think that's a piece of it too, right? Because you just don't want, hey, this department shares with this department all of our victories. We want to actually share where we're struggling and need the other departments, right? And so how do we get that kind of communication, not just to be, hey, we talk, but actually we talk real. It's real talk. It's not just the, hey, this is, and I think of that LMLL example, right? I mean, when he first started those meetings, everyone's just, oh yeah, everything's great, everything's wonderful. I've got all my ducks in a row, and the ones that aren't, I hide behind them, so no one else can see it. And then he was rewarding the first person that actually goes, we're in trouble, guys. We need help here. And everyone thought that guy's getting fired, but instead it was, no, that guy's getting honored, because we need that candidness. We need to know where are the fires we got to put out, guys. I don't want to just hear what's going well. I got to know what we have to work on.
I knew this was going to be valuable, sharing this with you guys. It's not a finished product yet. That's great. I love candor, and candor takes courage. There's all sorts of C words coming out now.
Absolutely.
There are.
Also, another C word that I use all of the time is curiosity. Too often the conversation is not a curious conversation. It's either a declaration or it's an accusation or something like that. But we get so much further with curiosity.
100%. Yeah, I like that C word too. It's hard to lose my own agenda for a while, to be curious, but it's so valuable when I can do that. Get out of my own shoes.
Yeah. And I think the difficulty for you then, Mark, is figuring out, how do I keep this in a bite-size, probably big picture, higher level, this is what it is. And then obviously there's pieces we're going to dive down to in each of the four. But I don't want to overwhelm you as a leader. We're going to figure that out as we go. Let's just hit the big pictures and know this is what we need. And let's start walking that walk together. And I'm going to be right here next to you, so you're not going to have to deal with this overwhelmed by yourself.
100%. And we don't have to do them all at once. But what's most important? Getting back to what you said earlier about context, like what's really happening? What's going to have the biggest impact right now? What do we start with? And do a little assessment to figure out what that looks like.
But what great! I love the focus of that. Let's eliminate territorial thinking. Let's eliminate those silos, or just even the sense that, hey, I don't know how everyone else is. I mean, you said it about HR or other groups that you've talked to, Gary, or you, Mark, that people are like, I don't know what's going on over there, but things are going well over here. I don't know what they do.
Yes.
We should have a sense of what do they do and why am I with them? Why are we on the same team? Why are we going toward? What are we going toward? And so I love that you're really trying to help people get that focus of what's that purpose, that core purpose that we're focused at, and what's that, the various pieces that we are all working and we're all on the same team. And this is a ship that we're going together on, not, hey, you got your ship, I got my ship.
It's not sinking.
We all get there flying. As long as my ship gets there, we're good.
It's fun. It's like I'm part of something that's really achieving something. If we bring this full circle back to basketball, like the fun part is like it feels like we're all trying to achieve the same thing together, and it's something big, and that's fun. That's that's the kind of thing I want to be a part of, not where we're all individual with our own agendas and so forth.
Yeah, it's really fun.
You made a comment at the end about coming back around to kind of system or hiring or that kind of thing, and it makes you attractive to the right people, because they want to go for that purpose.
That's
as opposed to the people who aren't on board with that purpose. Well, guess what? You probably ought to go find some company that's following your organization that's chasing your purpose.
Nothing wrong with that.
If you can't get on board with this one, you're not going to be motivated. You're not going to be excited. You're not going to work together.
Yes.
So,
I think the idea that if you're doing it all alone and you have all of the success in the world, but you did it all alone and there's nobody there on your team or nobody, what is there to celebrate, and who do you celebrate with?
Yes.
And it really makes me think about an extremely lonely person if they were doing it all alone, or that they're so territorial that they won't let anybody help. And I think for me, one of the biggest realizations that I had when I became a psychologist, my goal was always to create my own private practice. And as soon as I was in private practice alone, I was like, I need to build a team. I can't stand it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I have wins with my client. I can't talk about them with my spouse. I can't. It's all confidential. And so now I got all this going on, and I am alone, and it is lonely, and I don't have people to talk to. I actually started a little group where I was working with other psychologists and talking about cases, so I had somebody to talk to about. But we are group creatures. We need other people, and I think it's just so important to be able to realize that if I win alone, it has no meaning. When I win with other people, that's where it really comes in, is where we really start to be able to celebrate together, really be excited together. And I'm super excited about the way you're presenting your model, because it really is that getting rid of the silos and bringing people together. I really like that.
It's more fun that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like we're going to have a part 2 on this, Mark, as you refine this and drill it down and
Absolutely.
or
Well,
as we work on it together some more.
Yeah, I've loved the interaction here about it. That's been great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, as we finish up here, Mark, any last thoughts and things to share, throw out there to encourage folks watching?
I think Terry's got me thinking about what he just said there. I think it's worth it. Like, having fun. Like, I think a lot of us are lonely because even when we're on a team, like, we feel that disconnection. Or, man, it's fun to pursue something together and to go and to do this work. It's satisfying. It's rewarding. I mean, where do I want to be a year or 2 years, 3 years from now? I'd love to have gone through this work and feel like we're accomplishing something together. That's so rewarding. So I guess the encouragement is to do it. Take some action. Don't get too wrapped up in the X's and O's.
Yeah. See what
That's
happens.
fantastic. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, that's a great word, right? The work doesn't have to be misery, does it?
No, it doesn't.
So, yeah. Well, for those of you out there, you want to go share it quick, or you good?
I would just say thanks for joining us, Mark. We really appreciate it. I was excited about the topic when I heard it after we started. Take us out of here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're thrilled to have you, Mark, and we're looking forward to having you back. And for those of you that are watching out there, what an encouragement to help think about your own organization in those ways. And then also just our desire is to make the world work better, right? And so that's the dream, that's the desire. And if you're looking at your organization going, man, I could use a little bit of that. Mark is in Nashville, Terry's up in Portland, I'm in Houston. We've got a group of other folks within our Organizational Health Collective, and we'd be thrilled to help. We'd be thrilled to come alongside of you and or connect you with someone who could. And so reach on out to us, and we'd be thrilled to be a part of your journey together with you. And Terry likes that. So have a great day. See you soon. See you in a week.